Want to see the world's craziest drive shaft? It'll be good for like 35 miles an hour, I'm sure. It's probably fine. Yeah, we'll go with it. What's up? Welcome back to the Hawk Project. This is the Hawk. If you don't know what the Hawk is, it's my 66 Ford truck I've had for about 14 or 15 years. And I'm now completely rebuilding it. I built it back in high school, but now I'm rebuilding it from the ground up again. It is Crown Victoria swapped, which means I took the Crown Vic frame, firewall, and floor and grafted it all over or underneath the 66 Ford cab. I'm in the process of, I just lengthened the frame in the last episode. I'll link that in the description below. In this episode, we're going to tackle the drive shaft, extending that. That way we are prepped to get the bed back on it and get the Hawk looking normal again. Let's hop into it. All right, I went ahead, I got the exhaust cut off, and I also got the old drive shaft pulled out. What you're seeing here is the 66 Ford drive shaft. It has a conversion U-joint up front to convert to the newer Ford yoke. And so this is the drive shaft I'm going to use. I need to make a crossmember right now to support this carrier bearing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come off the frame here with a little bracket on each side, run a crossmember right underneath this floor. The carrier bearing will sit about right up in there with a little bracket that it can bolt to. Again, another bracket on that side, and the carrier bearing will be all sorted out. Where'd my tube go? Oh. Have a piece of, it looks like 1x2 square tubing here that I'm going to use as my cross member that I can build my brackets off of, and tabs on the end to make this a removable cross member in the event that I need to service something or whatever it may be. So I'm going to start cutting this up, getting stuff measured. Well, let me switch that around. I'm going to get stuff measured and then start cutting this up and knock this drive shaft out. Alright, so what I got figured out so far, crossmember. I got my center of the drive shaft marked, not center of the crossmember because it's off center in the car. Center of the drive shaft marked, and I have this really confusing mess laid out because I measured it a couple times wrong. That's why you measure twice and cut and drill once. But I'm gonna cut all this out, drill my holes. It's gonna have a couple bends in it, and that'll be done in just a second. That's what that jumbled mess of lines and everything turned into. Sits on there like that. With them little angles bent down, it braces it real nice and spreads the load out all the way across this cross member. I'm gonna get this welded up and then I gotta work on the ends. All right, as you can see, I got the bracket welded to the cross member. And now I'm working on brackets for each end. I've already got them cut and bent. There's an angle, I can't really see it all well, but this angle's up right here. I didn't do an angle on both sides because I am so close to the floor of the truck that if I do need to remove this cross member, and it is so tight side to side, it needs to be able to slide back. So it'll have a bolt hole going through the bottom. The cross member will be bolted to these brackets, which I'm just about ready to weld to the frame once I get everything measured up. Here you can see the other side. You can see that angle a little better there. So I'm gonna go ahead, weld those brackets to the frame once I get everything measured. And the cross member will be done. Oh, hold on. I'll have to drill my hole through the actual cross member itself. But fire up the welder. A little bit of a progress update. Went ahead and notched the end of these tubes, drilled my holes. I actually shortened it up a little bit to give myself some clearance because it was very tight trying to get that cross member out of the frame rails. Brackets are all welded in, no coat of paint on them. And then I ended up making a little spacer. It's inch square tube. I got to looking at the way this drive shaft was sitting on the cross member and the angle, and then where this is in relation to the rear end. And it looked like it may have been a little low. I had room to go up, so I went ahead and made a little spacer tube, which will push the carrier bearing up an inch if need be. So I'm not going to bolt the carrier bearing, I'm not going to bolt the cross member in yet. I still am waiting on my universal joint. That won't be until tomorrow. Want to see the world's craziest drive shaft? No, all kidding aside, I did that because AutoZone messed up in parts order, and I don't have the conversion U-joint for the back of the original 66 Ford drive shaft, which is the length I need. So all I have to do is buy the U-joint, throw that yoke on this drive shaft, cross member. This yoke is actually already a newer Ford yoke from when I did the dual overhead cam swap. So that already has a conversion U-joint in it. That should go in my transmission. So the stock 66 Ford drive shaft with like $50 in U-joints and a cross member should work out perfect. Again, I just did this to move the truck around. I'm not pushing this big beast in and out of the shop. So that's enough just to back up, turn around, pull back in the shop if I need to. So for now, I'm gonna put the little sketchy drive shaft in if I need to move it. But before I move it, I do need to fix fuel lines and get those rerouted due to the new length. So I'm gonna hop on fuel lines next and see where we go from there. All right, a little more progress. Fuel line is buttoned up and finished. I moved the fuel filter from, normally it's mounted right here on the frame. I was able to move it back, retain all the stock lines. The only thing I did is I took the stock steel line, cut it, added a length of fuel injection high pressure rated rubber line. I flared each end of the steel line, and then I put fuel injection clamps on each end. I tested it, it's not leaking. It's something that I'll periodically check, may even throw another 2 clamps on it. But that's all working. I moved over to the brakes. Honestly guys, if you do this where you extend your frame on a long bed, or for a long bed, the stock brake lines will work. They've got a lot of bends in them normally, like they'll kind of come low on the frame and then they Z up, and then if you straighten them out, now they're not the prettiest, and I could probably get them straighter, but if you straighten them out, they'll run straight along the rail, and I kind of come up with the little rubber protectors over the rail into one of the factory retainers. And then I took the line that goes for this wheel, which is normally mounted back here, moved it forward. This is a existing hole on the frame. Kind of just rebent the line some and moved it forward. And there is plenty of, I guess, slack in the rubber line because it's at full droop right now. There's plenty of clearance on everything. So that's the stock line on this side. Unfortunately, when I was cutting the body off, if you remember, I cut this line that goes to the other side of the truck. Had I not done that, my plan is I pulled the original line out. It used to run right across here and then across between the tank and the frame. I pulled it out because my plan is to, you can see the rubber line right there is where it's just kind of chilling. Attach it to the rubber line and then run it along the front of the frame rail, and then I'll have plenty to tie into here. So I'm retaining all the stock components and not having to lengthen or even buy anything if you don't do what I did and accidentally cut a line. So I'll need to get a brake flaring tool. I don't have one that will do the flares on these and get this one fixed. But for now, yeah. And then there's plenty, the Crown Vics have plenty of wiring because of how they are routed in the car. So there's plenty of wiring here. Nothing needs to be lengthened. Yeah, honestly, the only thing I might need to lengthen is my supply hose for my tank. But again, my tank's probably not gonna be mounted back where it is. I can move it up here. I got plenty of room here. I got the sketchy drive shaft in. I'm not gonna move the truck right now, I don't need to, but I wanna try and give it a couple of rotations and see how off it is. You're not gonna be able to hear anything though because the exhaust is cut off the truck, so it's gonna be loud. But let's fire up the truck and put it in gear and see what this drive shaft does. So I climbed in the truck, I'm gonna fire it up and put it in gear and just kind of slowly let it roll and see what this drive shaft does. Oh yeah, she's got a wobble. Alright, cure coated gray paint or silver paint on my Crossmember. And I have just slid the front shaft into the trans. So I'm gonna bolt that Crossmember in. And then I need to get the rear shaft all finished up, and then the drive shaft will be done. Okay, so I got the conversion U-joint installed in the old drive shaft using the Crown Vic rear yoke. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this slid in there and bolt it up. I also had quite the interesting mishap with the rear drive shaft. So I took all the measurements initially to get that this conversion U-joint, and then I had the mishap of getting it ordered and all that. So I got it, and I got it installed, or started getting it installed the other day. I got it installed in the 66 shaft first, and then I took the yoke off of the drive shaft that I had extended for temporary use, and I went to install it, got the yoke off, went to install that yoke on the conversion U-joint, and these caps were the wrong size. The Crown Vic caps were way smaller, and it threw me because I had measured everything and I thought I mismeasured and got the wrong U-joint, and I was gonna get set back a bunch of time. And then I got looking online, and Ford did 2 different size universal joints in the back of these cars. There was one size for if you had a police package or towing package, and then there was just a regular size. So the shaft I had used was the drive shaft out of the donor Grand Marquis that I've been kind of stealing some parts from, which turns out it had a smaller U-joint in the back of it. So I got to thinking, went and grabbed my drive shaft, my original one, and lo and behold, it was the right size universal and yoke. So that was a crisis averted. So now I've got my original yoke put on this drive shaft, and it appears to be working. Just get these bolts all put in here, tightened up, and all I'll have left on the drive shaft is just bolting the carrier bearing in. I'm not sure if I want to use that spacer or not. I gotta air the truck up and just look at my driveline angle of everything. I have the spacer in right now, and I think I want to use it, but I'll have to see once I get it aired up, cycle the suspension up and down, and get a better idea of how it looks. But all in all, It's been pretty simple using the stock drive shaft. And I like being able to use stock parts, because using stock parts means that if a part breaks, then I can order said part, usually in a quicker time than it would take to fabricate something or modify something. So it's always a bonus. These snug down, and I'll have to pull the truck out in order to run the suspension up and down, because I got everything so jam-packed in this garage, and the truck's actually backed under the bed, so the frame horns are hitting the bed if I try to pick it up. But yeah, I would say that is drive shaft done. Well guys, that's a wrap on this episode of the Hawk project. Got that drive shaft installed, and next I'm gonna work on getting the bed put back on this truck. It's been way too long since the bed's been on there, and I'm tired of it looking like just a cabin chassis. So I'm excited to get that bed put on, so stay tuned for that. If you guys haven't seen it yet, I have partnered up with Hoopies Hot Rods, and we are working on a 1952 Ford custom line. We are going to do a Crown Vic swap on that as well. So I'm going to put a link to that video. It might be right here, it might not. We'll see if it works. So I'll put a link to his channel and also a link to that video. So check those out. As always guys, I thank you for watching. If you guys have any questions or comments, drop those down below. Have a good day.